What is going on, Packers fans? Welcome into Packaday Live here on the Packaday podcast. Of course, joined by the one and only Mike Wahle. You can find him on social media at Mike Wahle68. Process to perform. Mike, it was a wild week 5 in the NFL. We've got some good injury updates from Green Bay. We'll get into all of that. But before we do, how the heck are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, Andy. Thanks for having me on. Awesome weekend. Yeah, there was some good games yesterday, but I tell you what, I watched, I don't know if you are in UFC and I don't want to get off topic, but that card in UFC on the 320 on Saturday night was unbelievable.
You're going to be so disappointed in me. I'm not a UFC guy, which will explain this second part, but I was literally right on the block of the fight about an hour before the fight, and I went to see a comedy show instead. So, yeah, I honestly didn't even realize that the fight was there. I didn't realize a couple different things. I didn't realize the fight was there. I didn't realize that the Las Vegas Aces were playing in like the WNBA finals. Well, I could have seen a game there as well. So I dropped the ball on a couple different things. I don't know that I would have went to the fight anyway, but I didn't even know about it up until literally like an hour before. And I was literally like on the block of the fight.
Yeah. I used to live out there when like fights were kind of getting big. And so when maybe you don't know these names, but Tito Ortiz, Rampage, yep. Chuck Liddell. So like we used to go, at least once a month, we'd go to the fights in the off season. It was fantastic. So I've kind of grown with the sport, and I love watching it. And I'd go see a comedy show just as fast, though. To be honest with you, I love a good comedy show. Good stand up show is phenomenal, and they've got
it was really good. Vegas. It was really good. So I definitely enjoyed it. But yeah, I've heard that the fight was amazing, and it would definitely have been something that I would have definitely considered, just because I don't know, like I would ever make it like a destination thing to go to. I've never seen a UFC fight even on TV, but I know I'll have to, at some point, I'm sure I'll probably get into it, but I just feel like I heard too much stuff, but I digress. We got good injury news today, Mike, at practice. Green Bay's first practice back from the bye week. The big one, the headliner, Christian Watson, 274 days after tearing his ACL, returned to practice. The practice window is open officially from the PUP list. Same thing for Jacob Monk. Off of IR, they have opened his window as well. He was practicing. Zach Tom and Aaron Banks were both practicing. The only two that were not were Devontae Wyatt and Anthony Belton. Of course, any other players that were on IR or PUP, including MarShawn Lloyd, still not practicing as well. But overall, some pretty good news for Green Bay.
Yeah, that would be huge. Obviously, everyone's going to talk about Christian Watson, and as well they should. The good news about him is because he has such a unique skill set with the speed, is you can kind of insert him into the offense and go, just for right now, we're going to give you this very small menu of plays. Here's what you need to do for us in the short and medium term, and then we can kind of grow you into the route tree and all the different combinations of personnel packages, et cetera, where they can start kind of fitting him in and figuring out where the space is created with him in the game with some other combinations. But obviously, just based on the last couple of weeks, you got to be excited about bringing back Aaron Banks and Zach Tom. Zach Tom in particular, he's just you want to have those guys around you, and he's not a David Bakhtiari, but we used to talk about Bakhtiari being a force multiplier, because not only what he was doing, but the confidence that comes with all the guys working around him. And I think Zach Tom, if he's not already, over time is going to turn into one of those players for Green Bay. So big deal there. Hope that shores up some of the kind of the talk about the offensive line the next couple of weeks, and certainly they'll have a test here with Hendrickson and TJ Slayton, all these guys coming from Cincinnati.
I'm interested in this. So we just got a super chat in from Sergio. He said, MarShawn Lloyd is turning into a draft mistake, even though it's not his fault. I always struggle with this a little bit, Mike, and maybe you can talk about this a little bit too, of when players have a multitude of injuries and it causes chaos within their careers. I understand being disappointed, maybe even frustrated at the lack of playing for MarShawn. And when you spend a top 100 draft pick on a player, you obviously want to see him out there. The buzz from training camp and everything for Lloyd has been fantastic. Many draft experts had him as the top running back in his particular draft. So there's a huge desire, I know, for everyone to see him out there and see what he can do. And he's just had literally a laundry list of injuries. I can't personally, like, I struggle with being frustrated about the player of like that he can't get out there. It just is one of these things that sometimes happenstance with the game. Now, if there's a report of like, yeah, the Packers think he can play and he's not going out there and playing, all right, well, that's maybe a little bit of a different story. But it's definitely disappointing that he hasn't been able to play so far, that he's still not out there practicing. But to me, this is just one of those unfortunate injury, I guess, luck, for lack of a better term, situations. And I don't know what more to kind of make of it than that.
I don't think there's any more to make of it. That I mean, obviously, MarShawn Lloyd wants to play football for the Green Bay Packers. He got drafted into a great situation behind a great running back and an offense, quite frankly, that is very friendly to running back. So, when guys aren't out there, when you have these certain players that are kind of, I don't want to say they're high risk, high reward, but when you've got guys that are burners that move a little bit differently than everybody else, they also, a lot of times those guys tend to have injuries.
Yeah.
And it's a fact of life. And certainly that goes into the computation process when they decide when and where to draft them. But, to the comment here by Mr. Kennedy, I think this is year one, right? Like,
yeah, well, year two, because last year was his rookie year. This is his second year. But
I mean, sorry, year
Yep.
two. So apologies. But even still, you kind of look at this and go, let's give him a little bit of window of time, see what he does when he gets out there. And I was, of course, being a player, I look at this and go, like, are you kidding me? Like, he's not a mistake. The guy got hurt. Things happen. Like, that doesn't. Mistakes are guys that have character issues in the locker room, character issues on the field that prevent them from playing. Whether that's because they don't get in their playbook, whether it's because they just don't play hard enough, whether it's because they're bad at practice. Like, those are draft mistakes. Draft mistakes are not guys that are getting kind of these nagging injuries that reoccur. Yes, in retrospect, certainly, would you like to? I don't know. Would you like to drop him down a round or something like that? Does it make you feel better about the decision? I really don't know. But I think eventually a guy like this, when you just watch his skill set and the uniqueness of his physical abilities over the course of his career, he's going to have a couple games where you're like, he just won that game for us. And because he's that kind of player. Yep. So, let's give him a little bit of time.
And I think the thing with drafting too is like, all of it is some level of risk reward. And you just have to figure out at what slot do you want to take risk, whether it is a character flaw, whether it is a athleticism flaw, whether it is a injury issue flaw, whatever it is, everyone's usually got something. And it just is like, at what point does the talent supersede it that we're willing to take that risk, understanding, hey, this player might not work out no matter what, or they might not work out just because they're not good enough. We could take a running back that can stay healthier. But you know what? Even if he's out on the field, he doesn't change the dynamic for us all that much just because he's not that talented. There's always risk involved inherently.
And he's a third round pick, right? Is that what it was? Yeah. So he's a third round pick, and he's a third round pick because probably because of some of this stuff. And so the thing about the Green Bay Packers, the way that their offense operates, you see that other people can have let's just call it pedestrian success. You can put in a lot of players that can just have kind of pedestrian success in that offense. What you're looking for are the Josh Jacobs types, the guys that have, the MarShawn Lloyds who can actually turn a 3-yard gain into a 30-yard gain, or the guys that can run past the safety and the final boss on the field. So those are picks, like you say, risk reward. Like, that's what this team needs. Much more, like, we can get a ton of guys who can come in and just kind of do the job and do the job adequately. What you're looking for with those picks, quite frankly, are game changers. And he's certainly, at least everything has pointed to, when he's on the field of play, like, he's a game changing talent.
And hopefully he can just get out there, and we'll see what happens the remainder of his career. I just hope he's getting all the injury stuff out of the way now. And whenever he comes back from this, he can come back and have a long and lucrative career in the NFL. But yeah, definitely frustrating for everyone. I'm sure the Packers and MarShawn Lloyd more than anyone else, but yeah, tough to label it as anything else at this point in time. We've got a couple of interesting questions here. So Outlaw 32 says, is our defensive edge group overrated? Definitely an overpay. I'll let you answer in a second, Mike. Just for me, really quick, I really like the way that this edge group is playing so far. I think Micah has been phenomenal, and everything is advertised plus. I think Rashawn Gary and LVN have filled in those number 2, number 3 roles incredibly well, and they've got a really nice rotation going there. I thought, maybe Gary and LVN didn't get home quite as much in that game against Dallas as you would have liked, but I think overall through the first quarter of the season, they're exactly where I would kind of want them to be. And then I like the depth after that too. I think Enagbari's had a couple nice plays, and I have no issue with this edge group right now.
So, okay, so they're overpaid, I suppose, but I guess he's saying that because Micah Parsons got the deal that whether you think he deserves it or not, that's the deal he's going to get.
Yep.
Rashawn Gary is a very well-paid player to not be number 1 on your team. Lucas Van Ness is the 13th pick in the draft. We've talked about that before. I don't know. I mean, I like Rashawn Gary. I like obviously like Micah Parsons. I like Yannick Bari. I think Lucas Van Ness is always going to be until Lucas Van Ness turns into Aaron Campman. He's always going to be a Aaron Campman year 6. He always is going to be you're like, okay, he's fantastic. Like he's good against the run. He plays really hard. He's, but there's just, he's not a guy when I turn on the tape as an offensive lineman, I go, oh man, I got to worry about that. Like my scouting report on him is like that thick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where like Mike has got one that's like that. His is like this, just set and hit what you see, because he's not going to give you anything different. And until he changes that, I like his effort and his production in the run game. And I like a lot of things that he does. It's just, you want to play as an offensive lineman. You want to play guys that are one-dimensional. And by that, I mean, like you're either worried about they're really good in the run or really good in the pass, not both. The guys that are both are the scary. Micah Parsons is scary because he's good in both. Rashawn Gary is actually better in the run than he is against the pass, right?
Yeah.
So those guys are a problem because of that. We need more guy. I think we need another guy in there that is maybe more of a complete pass rush, run stopping threat. But those guys are few and far between in the National Football League.
They very much are. And I think Mike obviously leads that group, and I'm super thrilled with where he's at. And we'll see where kind of the rest of that room goes moving forward, but not too disappointed so far from what I've seen through the first 4 weeks, with the caveat. Yes. I think all love more from LVN as a top 15 pick in the NFL. We'll see if that actually develops or not. As we take a look, at this past week, week 5 in the NFL, some interesting results. You get a 49ers win over the Rams, which I thought was really interesting. That Bucs Seahawks game was awesome. A ton of fun. Baker he's a blast to watch play football, every single week. And Igbuka, those two already with the connection that they have is a ton of fun. But yeah, that game was awesome. And then, you get Philly losing, you get Buffalo losing. There's no undefeated teams left. Mike, I said this on today's show, winning in the NFL is really freaking hard. It's really hard.
I was shocked at the Bills Patriots game. Mike Vrabel, I give so much credit to, because you think he finally got somebody who's just going to do it the Patriot way, the right way, and you just see the way that they're progressing. You see, look at the style of their game, and then look at the Dolphins. I mean, just look at the way that they present themselves on the field of play, same division. You know what I mean? It's absolutely insane how the personalities, and maybe this is just my perception, but the personalities of the coach come through so strongly with those teams respectively, right?
Yeah.
The Bills, the Seahawks game with it. Oh my God. I was watching that Seahawks game just going like, oh no, he's going to do it again. And when the Seahawks went down and took that lead, you're like, oh, this feels bad. Actually, there's too much time on the clock.
Yep.
And Baker's been fun to watch. He might be the MVP right now, quite frankly. Like he's really, really playing some good football. I thought the Commanders game yesterday versus the Chargers was a huge statement game, and the way that they ran the football. I forgot the name. He's got a hyphen name, but number 22, the running back. Man,
they call him Bill. They call him Bill, but yeah,
I love the way that dude runs a football, man. He's a tough kid. The NFL right now is so much fun to watch because, every year you go, there's 8 teams that are in it for the Super Bowl, and everybody else we can just, we can kind of talk about it because we're fans and blah 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 blah. But really, when you're a player, there's 8 teams that are these teams are going to be in the hunt, right? And that the good news is, I think over the last couple of seasons that is morphing a lot more. It's a different 8 teams all the time. Like the Ravens right now, you go like, holy hell, what are they going to do, right? They're talking about firing this and that and the other guy. Here's the thing that I'm actually surprised about. We haven't seen a coach firing yet. And to be honest with you, I'm a little shocked. I thought we'd definitely see one after yesterday.
Who was your top?
It's just Dolphins.
Yeah. I think that's probably the one too. I honestly wonder if the Cardinals collapse saved Callahan's job in Tennessee too in that game. You almost feel too like something was going to change. Just even watching Callahan on the sidelines in that one, it almost felt inevitable of he saw what was happening right in front of his eyes of this is just not going great. This is going very poorly. And then for Arizona to choke that game away the way that they did was remarkable. Then Cincinnati too, that's a really interesting situation. Obviously they're down their quarterback, which never makes things easy, but they've been brutally bad up until some garbage points yesterday. Sorry, go ahead.
I know Zach, and he's He's a great guy, right? But you look at the Bengals over the last couple, from his tenure, they were on their way out. He was in the hot seat, and then Burrow got, obviously the first year he's hurt, got healthy, bang, bang, bang. They're doing really well. Every time, now he's hurt again. It's the same thing. Luan Aroma's going to be a head coach. Now he gets fired. Their offensive line, the thing that's crazy about that team is, and I know Joe Burrow doesn't mind taking sacks, but that has to be one of the most poorly ran groups in the National Football League over the course of the last 5 years.
Big time.
And you are literally like, that is Fort Knox, and all the gold is inside in Joe Burrow. And they just keep going, like, man, they left the door open over and over and over again. You can't believe it. There's a couple spots, you talk about Callahan, you talk about really, I mean, the Arizona thing, we could go on forever, but the Arizona thing, you start watching the Arizona Cardinals, and I don't know what it is, because I think, like, Kyle Murray's a Texas kid. He just has this unbelievable high school resume, obviously great in the pros. I mean, he's great in college, excuse me. But every time I watch him play, and I don't know what it is, it just looks like he's ready to complain about something. There's something about his demeanor that and the other thing is, when you watch him, you think he should be by far the best player on the field all the time. And then you realize, like, oh, he's only like 5'8" or whatever it is. Like, he can't see over the line on some of those plays. And you don't realize, like, when you're just watching it on TV, sometimes, like, why are some of these things happening? It's like, oh, well, there are some limits. Like, sometimes the tangibles do matter a little bit, right? Because I think it does affect his game a little bit.
No, they really do. And Murray's always been one of the more interesting case studies in the league. Interestingly enough, two of those teams, the Bengals and the Cardinals, the two teams Green Bay plays next, Cincinnati at home, then Arizona on the road. So hopefully two great opportunities for the Packers. I know most of the league is 5 games into the season. The Packers are only 4 games in. When you were playing for a team, what type of feel could you have for a team 4 to 5 games into the season where things are maybe just starting to actually gel together? I'm sure there's some teams that are at 0-5 or 1-4 where the writing's already kind of on the wall. I'm sure there's probably teams like Detroit at 4-1 that knows they're going to be competitive towards the end of the year and things like that. But how much stock can you put in to the first quarter-ish of the season?
Well, including if you're talking about your own team, you're kind of doing a self-assessment. I think going through training camp what kind of team you have, and then obviously let's just assume that everybody stays relatively healthy, because I've been on teams where we lost Jake Delhomme, I think 5th or 6th game of the season. It was like we were in the NFC Championship the year before, and like we're not going to go to 500 now. I mean, because you lose your quarterback, right? So there's some of that, but assuming everybody's healthy, I remember in Green Bay, we always knew we were going to have a really, really good offense. And it was always a question of, like, where's the defense going to pick up? Where are they, are we going to have a breakout year from Mike McKenzie? Is Kabir going to have a 15 sack performance? Like, where is that thing going to come where we get the ball back a couple times? And because we kind of knew that's how the game was going to be played. The one year that always stands out to me is I think we started like 1-4. It must have been like 2003 or 2004, and we ended up making the playoffs. And it was actually a pretty good football team, but I remember we lost like the Titans or something. And, people are, getting interviewed after the game. And, I remember just saying, like, we're playing well. Like, I don't know what's happening. Like, we're watching the tape and going you go to the tape and you're like, man, I just graded out like really well. We shouldn't be losing these games.
Right.
And you say it out loud and you sound like, you're a crazy person or something. Yeah. But it's just, the reality is, like, you said it, winning the National Football League's hard. The margins are really razor thin. And there's just this, I think with a lot of teams, there's just this time that it takes each year, unless you have like a really, really, and for us, maybe it was on defense more than anything, but unless you have that really, really strong, Junior Seau type guy, or like, Brett or Amon on our team, you're kind of, as a coordinator, figuring out like what is going to work against these, like what's our identity. And it sounds stupid because everyone's like, well, you got this tough guy over here. You got this. No, it's like your identity actually has to change more than you probably think. And my identity, I mean, you might be a smash mouth run team, but like what kind of runs are those going to be? Like, are you, what are the changes in the defensive, trends in the National Football League mean for that offense and that offensive line? What is the spread add into, or what does the no huddle add into? The way the defense has to play. Do we have to communicate differently? this year? Are we using hand signals? Are we using one-worders? Are we using the headsets? Like all of that stuff kind of changes your operation pre-snap. And I think getting used to all that and kind of identifying that over the course of the first quarter of the season is really where you see, if you see a jump in production over the first quarter for the rest of the season, I think it's usually because the coaching staff got it figured out.
Yeah, and hopefully that's the case in Green Bay. They get some of this stuff figured out over the course of the bye week, and they can start playing better football. They've got some opponents they can beat coming up, so hopefully Green Bay can start getting a little bit of momentum here to start the I can't say second half of the year, but the post bye week part of the season. Outlaw 32 asks, with Wyatt injured, why didn't they put in Sorrell? Was he not active? I feel like that was the case. Why would Stackhouse be ahead of him in defense? Outlaw 32, I think you might be confusing Sorrell and Brinson. Brinson's the other defensive tackle. Sorrell's a defensive end. So Sorrell
looks good, by the way.
Sorry, yeah. No, I totally agree. Brinson was not active for that game, which is why Brinson was not put in. So not a correlation between Wyatt and Sorrell there, but the reason Brinson wasn't put in is because he wasn't active for the game and has not been active for any of the games so far. Is 4 defensive tackles too light to carry on a game day roster, Mike?
That's tough. Yeah, I was just gonna say if you only have 4 on the, I mean, you're real close to being, dropping down Lucas Van Ness to play. I guess the good news is with Lucas, you can kind of fudge it and get there.
Yep.
I think if you have a number in mind, like let's say you're going to hold 8 guys on the defensive line or 9, I think the standard is like 9 guys on the defensive line, right?
Yep.
And you got to kind of figure out what that looks like. And so when you look at our team in particular, there's just guys you can't not roster. And the thing about defensive ends is they can do a lot more on special teams as well. So for a lot of our guys, like Sorrell, for example. But if you have a strength in one of those positions, you need to, kind of exploit that. And what you don't want to do is chase roster spots and think like, well, I only have 4 good players, but I got to have 5 spots. So I'm going to bring this guy up and kind of waste a roster spot somewhere else. And that's part of the calculus that, the Goody and Coach Matt are doing every week, is trying to figure out it. You guys would be shocked when you just go up to, like, if you would just sat in like the first or either the first or the last meeting before, before the week starts or right before the game, and they're just kind of sitting up there and everyone's like got chewing tobacco and they're just looking at the board going like, all right, like who's hurt, who needs to really play, where does the special teams, like where does that calculus work in as far as like we need a gunner and what, whatever. And it's like it takes a lot of time, man, to figure. It's a more time-consuming process than you can imagine. A lot of it isn't done really until Saturday.
Yeah, I can imagine. There's a lot of logistics that goes into that, and hopefully special teams is a factor in some of that as well. Speaking of which, special teams has been a bit of an issue across the NFL so far. Our good friend Justice Mosqueda, friend of the podcast, posted the updated numbers today. NFL special teams penalties in 2024. There were 494 in a total of 285 games, 1.73 special teams penalties per game. So far in 2025, there have been 191 penalties in 76 games, 2.51 per game. Penalties are way up. We've seen the blocked kicks and the poor special teams play. We've obviously seen it in Green Bay, very loud and clear so far. What is it going to take to kind of get special teams to be a little bit more competent across the league, Mike?
Well, the obvious answer is preparation time. I wonder how much of the tampering with the kickoff affected. Like, I would be interested to see where those numbers are coming from. Like, a lot of that stuff comes on kickoff returns. But I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I do know that the kickoff returns continue to push forward as far as we are getting, like, you're kind of getting what you want from the league standpoint. The ball used to be projected, you go out to the 26, and then it was the 29, and now I think it might be close to 30 or over 30 as far as where the average starting line is for the teams that are returning the football. You see the kickers are getting better at pop. Well, some of the kickers are getting better at popping the ball into the 20-yard zone. So I think they're getting what they want, and it's always going to be a question. Anytime you have to hold a block longer, you're going to get more holding calls. So I think that's the most obvious thing right there. And that's where I think a lot of those would probably come from if you're just making me guess. So I don't, if that's the case, I don't know that they're going to go away, because it's not going to get any easier unless they change the rules again. So, and the more teams give kickers that drop the ball into the zone and force them to bring it out, the more penalties you're going to get. So that, there's probably a direct correlation between obviously the amount of times they bring the ball out, and the amount of times that they get a holding call. I don't know what the other calls are. You saw like the shift last night, I think, by the Bills on, right before the field goal, and the Patriots held their water. You see a lot of stuff like that. And then along with those can come maybe some sounds that come out of the defensive line that sound like a hike, so there's a lot of those kind of penalties that still occur. But it really just comes down to preparation, man. It sounds so stupid, and it's not a fun part of the conversation, but you've got to practice those things if you want to be good at them. You got to take the time. And like we talked about last week, the players and the coaches really have to value the difference. I mean, the thing that's eye-opening right now, Andy, is how many times this season already has a blocked field goal completely changed the course of a game.
Yeah. I mean, as we talk about every week, the margins in the NFL are razor thin. And if you've got a big play on special teams, that's like that in a lot of cases is going to be enough to swing a game in a pretty significant way, whether it's a blocked extra point return for 2 points, or whether it's a blocked field goal that takes 3 off the board, a blocked field goal return for a touchdown, which is a 10-point swing. Like those are just going to change the dynamic of the game, like almost every single time. If it's a blowout, obviously not, but any close game, and that's going to be a massive game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just think about it. The way that coaching staff thinks about a game is like so the offensive coach says, okay, how many possessions can we get, right? And then how many extra ones can we work in? And so all the things you just talked about are really, they're not only taking points off the board, it's actually you're flipping. We would count that as like a turnover. Like you're getting an extra possession, right? So, or if you're getting extra, in that case, you're getting extra points. In the case of like the PAT, that gets turned over for a 2-pointer. So all of that stuff is so important. Field position, like all of that stuff kind of factors in. And, it's what's always interesting about the game now. And you always hear about you hear a lot of ex-players talking about kind of the lack of development in the game now, and how, guys aren't maybe getting the individual development they need, especially like the quarterback position or the lineman position coming out. But what also is interesting is, you would think that because of all the analytics and all the awareness, the hypersensitivity to how are we going to just continue to gain these extra possessions and what that's all about. So it'll be interesting to see how the cycle continues, because intuitively you'd go like, well, if we learn how to get these guys to tackle with their head or their hands through the ball at the waist, then they're going to get some more fumbles, peanut punch the ball out, blah, 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 blah. But you see a lot of teams still not doing that, right? So it's that part of the game. The cool thing about the NFL, and I don't like how often they just shine a spotlight on something unnecessary in the offseason just to keep like the conversation going. But as you do make these incremental changes from a fan's perspective, like the NFL, the players and the coaches have to adapt. And as they adapt, there's always new opportunities, right? So it is kind of a self-enforced evolvement of the game that I think probably over the long term is helpful.
I had a conversation with a friend the other day. How many forced fumbles do you think Charles Tillman had in his career, 13-year NFL career?
Oh gosh, I don't know, 20?
44 forced fumbles by one NFL corner. Like imagine being a modern NFL player and having something literally named after you that you like basically coined, and now like people are doing it all over the league. 44 career forced fumbles from a corner is one of the more remarkable statistics. Like I would have probably guessed in the 20s too, but I was stunned by that number.
That's an insane number. And you think about, he would actually do things the wrong. This is what's interesting about football. So nobody would teach tackling the way that he was because he wasn't tackling. He would just come in and literally just punch the ball, right? And so you have to, and then this was kind of around the same time they were bringing in rugby tackling, or maybe this is a little bit before. But then rugby tackling came in. And it was like, oh, we got to have head behind. We got to do the shoulder thing, blah, 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 blah. We can't spear anymore, right? And if you're an analytics guy and you realize that the turnover, because there's not a lot of stats that go with yards after missed tackle contact that end up in losing plays. There's that, like I've done that stat before, but that stat's not very popular. But what is popular is turnovers equal wins.
Yep.
And so what's interesting is how many teams are looking at it like, because I've had the game management guys go to me like, no, dude, stop teaching tackling that way. Just teach them how to punch the ball out. We don't even care if they miss. It's like, well, why? He's like, well, because we get a turnover, we win the football game. And I go, at what point is that not true?
Right.
You know what I mean? But all of that, like all this is why it's interesting, man. This is the art and science of it is where do you draw that line of like, let's just have a bunch of dudes going out there, just not even trying to get involved. Just pop that sucker out and get in a couple extra turnovers.
Neither here nor there, but I'm always amazed of like, if you go for a peanut punch and miss the ball and just punch the player, should that not be a like 15-yard penalty? But I don't think I've ever seen one called in my entire life.
I saw there was one this weekend where a dude like just straight clocked side of the face, just bam, knocked him to the ground, thought he was dead. You know, you're like, oh my God, is he dead? Right. And he was going for the ball and he just completely missed it. And you're like, that's an awesome way to tackle. That looks like way more fun. Just like the hammer punch.
Can you just like, you know, when guys going in like just straight punches a guy, just hey, I was just trying to peanut punch the ball out. I was definitely not trying to punch him right in the chest or the face or anything else. Just going for a peanut punch. That's all it was. But yeah, neither here nor there. Alex had the question, who is the best center in the NFL right now?
Well, everybody says it's either Creed Humphrey or Tyler Linderbaum. I really like the guy from the Ravens, just because I like the way he moves a little bit. I think he's a more dynamic mover, right? But Creed's a really good player. Let's see. Who else did even be in? I mean, who else even be in that conversation? You know, what's funny is the kid that replaced Kelsey is really good too. The Eagles guy. Yes, he is. He's really good. I'm just trying to think.
I think that's kind of it. I think those two are totally in a class of their own. Yeah, I'm trying to go through and see if there's anybody that I'm not thinking of, and I just really don't think so. It's kind of a dead, like if you look at like some of these positions where like they're in like their glory days for how many like amazing pass rushers there are, quarterbacks or whatever it might be. Like there's kind of, like you said, there's kind of only two, Creed and Linderbaum, and that's I don't know that there's anyone else that's in that conversation. Like
Jake Brendel plays for San Fran, and he's a really solid player, but. You don't go like he's in that same category. Those guys, I think Linderbaum's he's just such a good mover. You know, Iowa kid, obviously. You know, there are other Iowa kids can just put together NFL linemen, man. It's unbelievable. Oh, go ahead. Good. Well, I was just gonna say I can't off the top of my head. I can name a bunch of centers. I think the thing is I think Corey Linsley was in that conversation for a long time, a lot longer than he was actually in the conversation for. I think he was such an underrated guy with Green Bay when he got paid, when they went out to the Chargers. I think they finally kind of gave him his flowers and then he got hurt. But I think he was in that conversation for a really long time as a phenomenal player. But I remember, like, obviously when I was playing, like Mike Flanagan was one of the best centers in the league, but unfortunately he got to play just after Matt Burke and Olin Kreutz had already established themselves as the two best like guys in the NFC, and they happened to be in his own division, right? So he was always fighting those guys. But in that division, there was a handful of guys that were in that conversation, but there were three guys that were, the top three guys in the NFC at least were all in the same division. We had that powerhouse group.
I still remember the Mike Flanagan left tackle games
plural, Chad was a guy. Listen, Chad was the most talented guy that we had by far, but Chad was also like, you knew he was good to miss a game a year. Like I say that with all the love in my heart too. Like you knew after a couple of years, you're like, you're not going to make it through all the season, are you? It's like, nah, But we had the game. Flanagan was so good. We were playing the Chicago Bears, and I was betting. What was his name? Alex Brown.
Okay.
I forgot. I can't remember who I was playing against, but I was betting Alex Brown for like $5 a snap that he couldn't beat Flanagan in pass pro. Flanagan was so good. And then Flanagan played Bruce Smith was trying to get the sack record against Flanagan. He was playing for Washington. And of course, like, Reggie took like 50 less games or stuff like that. And then, we're not going to give up to it. And Flanagan shut him down so bad. I think he ended up taking himself out of the game in the third quarter.
That's awesome.
You have to check me on that, but he was like Flanagan's.
I love Flanagan so much.
He's the best hands that still to this day I've ever seen on a football player.
That's impressive. Yeah, absolutely. That group of linemen, yourself included, was so fun to watch. And I'm with you on Corey Linsley too. When I was obviously going through and watching the tape every week, him and Bakhtiari, getting to see those two on the line every single game was just a joy to watch at center, a joy to watch at left tackle. And obviously like guys like Sitton and Lang at guard too. That entire line was really, really good. So
I watched Josh Sitton out down in Miami when he's like in his last leg. He had, I think we were scrimmaging, and he had I've only seen this twice. I saw it from Josh Sitton. It was a scrimmage, but he had a perfect scrimmage. He didn't do a single thing. Not one step was out of play. You know what I mean? Just like absolutely dominated every rep. And then the only other time I ever seen is Tony Baselli, but that was in a Brill game.
right.
But like absolutely, like, there was zero. There wasn't even a little thing you could knock off. He just did every damn. I told Sitton, I go, "What year is this for you?" And he's like, "Sure, I don't know, got a couple years, whatever left." And keep playing, man.
Very much so. Very much so. All right, a couple more, then we'll get out of here. Richard asked at the very beginning, wanted to get back to this. Luke Musgrave has been disappointing so far, but is there any way he can be a matchup mismatch in the receiving game given his size and speed? There has to be some value in that. I would like to think so. I just don't think we've seen much of it so far. Mike, where are you at on the Luke Musgrave experience?
I think the reality is you have to be so unique from a physical standpoint. You have to be what's Pitts? You have to be a Pitts-like athlete, the kid from Atlanta, to justify not being able to block as a tight end. And until Luke can come, because he's really lost his positioning. Their second tight end is 86 now, right? I mean, like he's coming in. Yeah, he's doing all the dirty work, because if you can't get in there and do that part of it, a lot of these safeties, nickel guys, they can run with you now, unless you're just some kind of freak that just has a 40-inch vertical or something, something like that. And when you've got a guy like Tucker Kraft, he's going to be your first option. And then you start looking at, okay, what does that other player bring to the table? And unless it's a well-rounded complement that includes like this really unique skill set in the passing game, I just think it's tough for a coordinator to be like, yeah, we're going to put a special package in for a backup tight end.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think you almost have to just use him as a big receiver at this point, than more than anything else, because, and then I don't know that there's a ton of value in doing that either. So, are you going to use him in the slot? Well, if everyone's healthy, are you taking Jaden Reed or Matthew Golden off the field as a weapon for Luke Musgrave? I don't know. So yeah, I hope there's more meat on that bone still, and I'm hoping there's a way to unlock him a little bit more. It just hasn't shown itself so far. All right, before we get out of here, this is we'll start with this, and then we'll transition into the game in totality. Joe says this isn't just a one game. If we lose, hell, if this Cincy game is close, we are taking a sledgehammer to the panic button. Mike, they opened as 14.5-point favorites in this one. Packers clearly have all the advantages. They're the better team. They're playing at home. Cincy's got backup quarterback in. They're not playing good football. What do we need to know about this game other than that Green Bay should theoretically win this one? Yeah,
I think Cincy's bottom three in offense and defense. Is that right?
It sounds right.
Yeah. I think they're bottom three in both. They're not even like, it's one of those games. I mean, Cincy's so bad right now that if they're on TV, you're just probably going to watch something else. You know what I mean? So yep. You'd love to start talking about Trey Hendrickson, and I think it'll be, it's TJ Slayton's there. And then, how's he, I've watched the tape yet, but how's he playing? Is he gonna have a good game against this, this former team, et cetera, et cetera. But these guys are, they're always bad on the offensive line. They don't protect their quarterback. And now they don't have a quarterback who's a magic maker. Jamar Chase is, and they've got a receiving core that's obviously amazing, but it's like, these games are, you don't want to say it's a trap game, because I don't think the Packers can be in a trap game after the last two games. But you would fully expect them to come out and just, the hope is that you just put the foot on the gas. And these are the games that, again, as a defensive player, you hope that your defensive players just stat stuff the hell out of this game.
Yep.
Everyone's okay. Maybe we had 7 sacks. Like we had that last year, right? We had a couple games where it's like
Titans game.
Yeah, where you're like, man, the Packers have how many sacks this season? You're like, nah, man. Remember the Titans game? Like we had 7. So it's you expect that to happen this week, but yeah, we'll see. Zach Taylor's a good offensive mind. We'll see what they bring to the table.
And then Donald asks, how do the Packers cover Chase and Higgins in this game? How do you go about trying to stop those two, or is it just about disrupting the quarterback?
Get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, they can throw fades as much as you got a fade and a slant. If you have any more, you give them any more time than that, then they shouldn't be able to throw the football. I have no time for what they've been doing the last 5 years up front, man. It's just terrible.
It is really brutal, and I don't know how it's gotten to that point, but it has, and hopefully Green Bay can take advantage this week. Mike, I cannot thank you enough as always. We will talk again next week following Packers Bengals to break that down and start looking ahead to Packers and Cardinals in Arizona. Any parting thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I just think, again, this will be a fun game to get back on track. Hopefully, we've said that before, and this is, like you said, this is the best part about the National Football League, man. I lost a bet to my son last night with that damn Bills game, and I'm not going to lose this weekend. I know that.
I'm looking at some of the survivor leagues and some of the pick'em leagues and the confidence leagues and all these things. It was a bloodbath this past week with some of the results and some of those things. So yeah, some very interesting results, including that Bills game. And NFL is wild. It's crazy. And I cannot wait for, tonight, actually, KC Jacksonville should be a really fun game. And then I think the Thursday night game is crappy though. Yeah. Eagles at Giants. I'm not expecting too much from that one.
I'll tell you what, that Giants, that scat between the quarterback and the running back, I'll watch that game now. I like
yes.
those guys are fun.
Scatterboo is fun. Scatterboo's a madman.
I don't know if you watched Abdul Carter.
Oh yeah, he's insane.
I had some guys playing against him like week 1 or 2, and they've got Brian Burns is an unbelievable player.
He's really good.
And they took the kid Thibodeau out of Oregon, and I'm kind of he's fast off the line and everything, so on him, but they were like, man, this 51 kid is different now. He does some matrix stuff.
It is going to be interesting to see over time, because obviously Jacksonville took Hunter ahead of him, the corner wide receiver ahead of him, and then the Browns traded out of the spot too. Now they picked up Mason Graham, who's looked really good so far, and they picked up a future first. So I have a little bit more accident forgiveness on the Browns so far at that one, but can you imagine Carter and Garrett on opposite ends of that defensive line? Like, I don't know what you do at that point. Like, that is beyond terrifying.
I think Garrett is, Garrett's the best player in the league defensively, but you look at Josh Allen Hines for Jacksonville, and I can make this. I mean, I know they have Trayvon Walker, but Trayvon Walker is not nearly as good as Abdul. I mean, that kid's different now. So I can see that. I can see both those. Travis Hunter's going to be a really good football player in this league too. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But it's funny, and it's easy to appreciate a defensive end maybe more so than a good corner, because you just don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Going to be fun, and I'm with you. Even if it's not maybe on paper the sexiest matchup, I'm still watching Abdul Carter, Scatterboo, Jackson Dart a little bit too. Should be a fun one. Mike, I cannot thank you enough. Go follow him, Process to Perform, and on social media at Mike Wahle 68. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL. That's going to do it for us today. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.